And welcome to the December and final episode of 2021 of Anne and Steve Talk Stuff. Somehow we've gotten to the end of this year where we're still talking about 2020 as if it's yesterday. And 21 is about to be over. But we do want to go into the final part of the year and into next year with some fun. So we're bringing some fun today, Steve, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. When you need fun, look for an economist. We are the most fun people.
You're on speed dial on my phone.
Yeah.
Steve, of course, is the economic. Oh, I forgot to give our tagline. The Anne and Steve Talk Stuff Show, where an economist and an artist walk into a podcast to talk about strange things that make the world go round. You have already clarified, Stephen, you are the economist in question, and I am the artist.
The merchant of crack.
Merchant of crack, and
Yes.
I'm just an artist who dots I's and crosses T's. To be honest, I do so much of that, and there a huge amount of the arts life is the same as any job, because life is, let's say, 98% admin, no matter what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything has its overhead, right? So everything from I think a large amount of why the tax system works actually is because it abstracts a lot of the complexity away from you. You would produce a rabidly right-wing population if you forced everybody in Ireland to do their taxes in the same way that a self-employed person has to do it. Because it's terribly complex, but just because it's a massive ball ache. So in America, you have to do your taxes. It's a big thing, right? And they could do it for you. I mean, the revenue commissioners does it for us, but then the money just disappears out of your account before you even get it in the paycheck, right? And you just kind of go, okay, fine, and then you don't really think about it because you never saw it in the first place. If you actually had to earn the money, keep it in a bank account, and then pay it at a certain point in a year, I'm telling you, no one in the country would be up for the idea of increasing taxes for anything. You would just because of the sheer ball ache of doing that work, which hopefully we can improve with technology.
Well, the thing is, as a self-employed person who does my own taxes, it is that thing of you get to the end of this horrific experience if you aren't into it. And a lot of people I know they have the brains they get a kick out of making, I don't know, balancing books or doing a sum. It's not my favorite thing at all. And at the end of it, what do you have? A bill. So it's like, oh, great, thanks. But that said, we did talk about bringing the crack, and I mean, taxes, close to the crack. But I thought instead, well, you thought maths would be more crack.
People are like, how quickly can I turn this thing off? Oh my God.
So as someone who, I'll be honest, I don't like to be a cliche who's like, I'm an artist, I'm not good at maths. I mean, most of my life is maths. I was just only this morning working on, I'm doing a school show. And I mean, auditioning 60 kids and then trying to figure out where to put them and how to do it is mainly maths. The artistic part of it is pretty small. You're just trying to figure out how to include everyone and where to put them. And so much of inadvertently, I was like, when I leave school, I'll never use maths again. And I just use them all the time because they're part of life and they're hugely part of life. But my so that was my feeling when I left school. I was like throwing a match over my shoulder. I'm done with you. No, it's not true. There's no getting away from them. But you would have a different attitude to maths than I would. And we were going to talk about some exciting things in the future regarding maths and then some other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think what is interesting is the kind of maths that you inevitably end up using, right? So, people go, oh, I'll never use these, I'll never use calculus again, and then like jump into a car and accelerate somewhere where like literally they're using calculus in their minds to not crash into cars the whole time. They're like, his rate of change is greater than my rate of change. If I don't get out of his way, he's going to slam into the back of me. Okay, that's not good. So I think we naturally live in a world of maths, and like when we are now talking through the internet, which is essentially I'm talking to you through space, right? So this is being beamed up on a satellite somewhere, which is bouncing off another satellite, which is like landing, I don't know, in Tajikistan, and then it's like zipping around somewhere, and all that basically only works because of the theory of relativity, which only works because a mad lad called Riemann came up with an idea about how to bend paper in an interesting way. I love, the thing I love most about maths is the fact that it connects seemingly unconnectable things. There's a guy called John Nash, and Nash lived in the he died in 2015, but he was one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century. And his whole PhD at Princeton was like 15 pages long, which was, ridiculous even for mathematics. That's a ridiculously short PhD. He defined in a 2-page paper something called the Nash equilibrium, which is a beautiful idea. And the idea is, how do I know that you know what I know? It's absolutely brilliant. And he got the idea by swishing a coffee cup around. Like, it's so crazy when you think about it, but they're all connected. It's something called a fixed point theorem. Anyway, the fun thing about the Nash equilibrium is that it very neatly encapsulates a way for us to think about strategic thinking in the other person. It has probably stopped nuclear war because it's been used as a way of trying to understand how foxes and how rabbits behave, because they're actually strategically, the fox is trying to eat the rabbit's trying to eat the grass and get away from the fox. They're strategically connected to each other. And Russia and America, they could blow each other up, but they're strategically connected to each other. What's called Nash now, the Nash equilibrium, the balance point between them. And Nash, he came up with that was only a 2-page paper and was only his PhD. He was like 22. He came up with 2 other amazing things they're called the embedding theorems, and it's about theorem is just a statement. It's a statement about the world, and it's all about how you, again, crumple a bit of paper. How do you represent the crumples? Right. It's so, but it turns out that it like explains massive things about, gravity and also how the market functions and like everything. That's why I really, really love it. The other thing I think is amazing is about how modern mathematics is so different to what you think. So in movies and that, and by the way, there is a movie about John Nash called A Beautiful Mind. He spent about 30 years of his life with significant mental illness, and the movie is amazing in that they managed to get everything wrong, like everything. Absolutely everything wrong. There's not a single thing in the movie that's right. Like I left the movie, my wife was like, "Oh my God, wasn't that so great?" I was like, "Grrr." You go punch Russell Crowe, who I loved in Gladiator, but I just wanted to murder him with an axe at the end. It's just everything in the movie's wrong. Literally, like there's not a thing in it that's right. It's the
I know I've listened to reviews or read reviews of it
you did?
quite recently. So when you mentioned it, I suddenly connected. Oh yeah, that guy. That movie that really doesn't in any way portray who he was or anything, and
in no way. The only thing they get right is the idea that Nash won the Nobel Prize in economics for his 2-page paper. And that's how deep his contribution was. Wow. But actually, what he really should have won, because he wasn't an economist, he was a mathematician. He should have won something called the Fields Medal. So the Fields Medal is it's only given to every 4 years to a mathematician of genuine genius who has advanced the of science and mathematics, and they have to be under 40. And so Nash was just incredible, utterly incredible, but he didn't win it. And looking back, mathematicians who have won the Fields Medal have said not 1, not 2, but 3 of his major ideas are individually worth the Fields Medal. That's how deep his contribution is. Like the Nash equilibrium is basically, biology, economics, international relations, all these kind of areas have used his concept, but they're not even the biggest ones he came up with. But
let's make a movie about a pretend man, woman, and child he sees wandering around in his.
Yeah, yeah, so bizarre, so bizarre. And also like I think the actual relationship of Nash with his wife Alicia was much more interesting. The way like she stuck by him in the movie, like she divorced him. She ditched his ass, but then like she couldn't get rid of him, so she just left him in her basement for 20 years. Like it was crazy. Like it's actually, you could easily tell the story of John Nash through the eyes of his amazingly long-suffering wife, and they got back together. And then when in 2015, so in 1994, I believe it was, he won the Nobel Prize. So that gave him he didn't win it alone. He won it with two other people. And that's like $1 million. So he got like some money, like he'd been penniless for years before that. And then a couple of years later, then he began winning like prizes all over the place and getting money for lectures and this. So he was like pretty secure. But he won something called the Abel Prize, which is a bit like the Nobel Prize, but it's not, unlike the Fields Medal in math, it's actually for people who are super distinguished, like, dudes in their 70s and whatever. And he won that. And on the way back so that's like $1 million as well. So like, financially secure for the first time in his life, despite the incredible contribution he made to knowledge. And then on the way back from the award ceremony, Nash and his wife died in a car accident.
Oh my God.
So there's so much tragedy in the man's life. It's really extraordinary, and he has incredible highs and incredible lows, which is why I think he makes for such good television. But the real story of his life would have been, it would have been vaulting ambition, a genuinely deep genius, and then just his son was equally brilliant at maths, and unfortunately developed the same mental illness that he had. And so it's both sad and wonderful at the same time, because his ideas, the great thing about mathematical ideas, unlike almost every other kind of thing in the world, they are permanent in a way that literally nothing else is. Think about Pythagoras, right? So everybody listening to this, you're like, oh, the fucking triangle guy. Yeah, right. His idea, you don't even need to like know the name of Pythagoras. We all probably will, but in 5,000 years, that thing will still be true. The pyramids will be dust and we'll all be fucking self-intelligent robots, living on Mars. Pythagoras will still have his theorem. The Riemann hypothesis will still be a thing. Fermat's last theorem will have been solved by Andrew Wiles. And the story that we're going to talk about today will have been sorted.
So tell us what we're talking about today.
So I want to talk to you about this.
Why should we be excited and happy?
Why should we be excited? Yeah. There's this geezer, right? His name is Peter Scholz. And he's a mathematician at the University of Bonn. He's 28 years old, and he is one of the world's greatest mathematicians. He is a genius in the sort of John Nash level genius. And we tend to forget, I think, because we romanticize the past. We tend to think, oh, things were better in the past, and they aren't. If you could pick any year to be born, you would pick 2021. And the reason is you will live longer than anybody born previously, on average. You'll be healthier. You'll be wealthier. You'll be wiser. You will have the advantages of all the previous years of development and growth. And things will genuinely work out better for you. We live in an era where inequality is falling between countries, where life expectancy is rising, where on average, more people do more interesting things for longer with their lives. They experience sickness for less of their lives. We're talking right now about a new variant called Omicron, about COVID. And the reality is, like, we're going to have a vaccine for that faster than any other vaccine has ever been created before. You know, they're talking about, oh yeah, it'll be early next year before we have a vaccine for it. Like, early next year is literally 2 months away.
Yeah.
We're recording this on the 2nd of December. I predict by the end of February, we have a full vaccine for Omicron. Like, the world has it's never been better to be a human. It's probably never been worse to be the environment. Fair.
Yeah,
But
I was
it's
just
like,
thinking,
yeah,
you'll have nice weather if you hang around Ireland long enough.
yeah. You'll be lovely and you'll be cooking, you know, as long as you're not flooded. But like, I don't want to sound like a techno optimist, but I think when you get abstract away from the headlines, you look around and you go, things are just unbelievably good. They really are. And I mean, that's not to say things are amazing and everyone's having a deadly time and we're all living our best lives, you know. But on average, if you were to say, which time period should I take my chances in? Now has to be the answer. So, all of which is a kind of a weird rant to bring me back to Peter Scholz, who's a genius mathematician. And what he does is he does something called topology. And that's the study of surfaces, like a flat surface, like your table, or a mountain range, or maybe like a time series or something, right? So something that's really bouncy, right? So like think about a donut. People always, these topologists, they love talking about donuts because they all think we're thick, but like, they like donuts, but it's a topological space, right? A donut's a really interesting topological space. You've got like a spherical thing and a gap in the middle, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Anyway, and so he's got this thing where what Scholz wants to do is replace a topological space, which says, here is where all the points that make up the donut are, with what's called a condensed set, right? So what he's trying to do is he's trying to imagine that the donut is comprised of infinite amounts of dust.
Okay.
Right? And sort of see what happens. Anyway, so Scholz is writing this stuff, and it's like super cool, right? The maths are super cool, and it's very amazing, and I don't understand half of it, but what's lovely about it is you can just see this like massive thing opening up. As a fan of, like, I'm just a fan of maths, I'm a fan of looking at this stuff. You can just see this massive field opening up in front, but he's just opening it up for us. Do you know the way? In the same way that Nash opened up the Nash equilibrium, and it opened up game theory, and it opened up everything else for us. This is he's just going to clear away the curtains, and we're all going to go, oh Jesus, there you go. Like in MIT in the 1950s, 3 dudes were working away on something called a manifold problem, and they couldn't really figure it out. One lad eventually did figure it out. He won the Fields Medal for it. It turns out that mathematics is the thing that describes protein folding, which is why we have the vaccine that we have for Omicron, right? So like all of it's the depth of it, everything from atoms, the tiniest thing, to the biggest thing, to galaxies. It's all described by the same set of concepts, which is fucking class. Wow. Like it's just class. Anyway, Scholz, I keep getting distracted by this excitement. He's coming up with this theorem, right? And the theorem again is like, well, if you agree with a very precisely worded statement, then logically the following is true. That's what a theorem is. And you can use the theorem because the theorem is like a bowl, right? And you can put water in any bowl. You can fill it out, right? And it'll be great. So yeah, we have these kind of cool things. You can move them around. What's true? If a theorem is true, it's true everywhere. That's the cool thing about them, right? So Scholz is trying to figure out this really complicated proof, and this theorem. He's like, oh, I need to prove this theorem. He stated it properly, but he can't figure it out. So Monday to Thursday, he's working on this thing 20 hours a day. He can't get it out of his head. He's doing it all the time. And then he just says, fuck it. And he goes on the lash with his friends. He goes absolutely wild, right? Drinking pints, shots, the whole thing. He wakes up in the morning, hung over to bits with the answer in his head, right? Hashtag subconscious for the win, right? But the problem is there is there is an issue, which is that his solution is incredibly convoluted. It's not like 1 + 2 + 3 equals, yeah?
Mm.
That's not it. It's incredibly convoluted. So he's not totally sure if he's right. So what they do is they turn around and they say, hello, I want a computer to help me prove this. And there's a computer proving software called Lean. So Charles says, could anybody help me do this? Right. And all these guys and mathematicians don't like this computer or software, right? They don't like the software because they're like, oh no, we're like lone geniuses, pencil and bit of paper kind of thing. They don't like the idea that their amazingness can be abstracted out to a computer program, because of course the minute that happens, they're toast, right?
Sure.
But Charles is like, this is so complicated. I'm too hungover to be dealing with this shit. Can somebody else do it? Do you know? There you go. So yeah, happy days. There is this really interesting thing that Charles then goes and works with these two dudes and this whole community of mathematicians. And this is the brilliant bit. This is the bit that like we should all be cheerful about. So
Yeah.
lone genius goes in the lash, comes up with a proof of the theorem. In a film, he'd be like writing that shit down on a window or something.
Yeah.
This is not what actually happened. What actually happened was he went, can I have some help, please? And then these guys all around the world were like, yeah, cool, we'll help. And so they all got together and like stitched Charles's proof together in this cool program called Lean, and then proved it, right? And it took like a year for everyone to do this. And Charles, like, he wrote this blog post at the start going like, I really hope someone can help me do this.
Yeah.
So that they wouldn't waste all their time. And then he made a big public statement and he said, look, this is really important. I really want to do this. I really want to do this. And if anybody can help, I'd love that. And because he's so famous and prestigious, people are like, yeah, cool, happy days. So they all get involved, and they sort of, they prove it. And it's this lovely thing where it's like, a collective effort where people just got involved because they wanted to see the answer, not necessarily because of credit. And it's pretty great. It's actually pretty great as a thing. I was very, very, very happy when I read this, because it's a big collaboration. Nobody was like the big guy, it's like Charles is super famous in his own right, but like what actually happened was a group of people got together and then they produced this thing that was like brand new, using a piece of software which is also brand new.
Yeah.
And that is a reason to be incredibly cheerful, because it means like as a species we do make progress collectively. It's messy and it's complicated and it's sometimes extraordinarily frustrating, but progress is possible. There's a philosopher called John Gray, and if you ever read his stuff, there's two John Grays. One John Gray is the LSE philosopher who has amazing books like Red Dawn and The Soul of the Marionette. There's another guy who's like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Don't read that guy. Don't read that guy, right? Read this guy. So John Gray, he doesn't think progress is possible. He thinks you as a human are too limited, and people never change. And fundamentally, there's no such thing as human progress, right? That's bullshit. And so they're so like anti each other. It's because the men are from Mars. John Gray is really like, yeah, everything's great. You can change. You can change him. She can change you. You can change her. It'll be amazing. John Gray's like,
respect the man cave.
Yeah, respect the man cave. Respect the man cave. Yeah. So I love the idea that I'm sort of like, I think economics sort of, I think economics believes deeply that progress is possible in society. We call it economic growth, but it's basically just progress, right? It's basically somebody saying, listen, it is actually possible for you to go from A to B, or for society to improve. And if you don't believe that, I think there's a certain nihilism creeps into all of us,
Yeah. Would
Yeah.
that be a bit of a reaction to, like, say, a big tenet of religion is that you come to a revelation, or you change through your beliefs? Like, could it be a little bit of a kickback against that?
Yeah.
That I don't know. I mean, a lot of the time people are a product of their environment, and if the environment is predominantly telling them choose God or Buddha or whoever, and you will be enlightened, or you will have a revelation, or you will have salvation. I was like, no, you can't. That's
Yeah.
all just,
All
you're
just
just being
nonsense.
sold nonsense.
Yeah. I read a book years ago called A Little History of Religion, and my son is really interested in it as well. And we talk about comparative religions all the time, and I'm actually really interested in Zoroastrianism. Actually, it's really interesting. But I'm interested in it, I'm interested in it in the same way that I'm interested in the Shaw's computing thing. I'm just like, wow, that's cool. It's a cool thing to know. I think belief systems are fascinating. They're in accounting, they're called institutional practice. It's like, it's whatever people do is the rule that says you treat capital acquisitions tax like this. It is as much reality as anything else, right?
Mm,
If you believe that the central bank will change interest rates to correct inflation, that's as true as a physical law of reality,
yep,
because you change your behavior based on your belief about the institutional practice.
sure.
Similarly, if you happen to believe that there's a big dude with a beard up there who's judging your ass for not doing stuff, you're going to change your behavior. It's exactly the same,
Mm.
right? Like, it's literally the same thing, you know? And I think that's very, very important. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of cool. There are certain religions that believe in personal progress, and they mandate that. And they're typically built around the idea of trade. They come from trading nations. So if you
Mm.
trade, you get wealthier. And if you get wealthier, then that's great. So, you tend to find religions sort of, that religions based around trading nations tend to validate some kind of theory of human progress, because like they can see it, whereas other religions don't. So, I mean, take the basic Lutheran predestination theory, right? You're toast, Dan. Doesn't matter what you do. You're born, you're toast, or you're not.
Yep.
Or Hinduism, you're on a wheel, right? And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can alter the trajectory of the wheel a bit, but like not that much. Fundamentally, you're in your cast. Get over it, buddy. Um, I like the Buddhist idea that says basically, do your best, lad. You'll be grand. I quite like that.
Don't get too attached to anything.
Relax, it's all a bit much, isn't it? You'll be grand. You'll be grand. You'll be grand. Your existence is suffering. Get over that. I
Mm.
quite like the Gnostics. The Gnostics who they believe the world is fundamentally evil.
Oh.
Satan won, and that we live in hell, and our basic job is to not make things worse. Which I just think is brilliant. I just that's some dark shit right there. Or look at the Mormons. I'm really interested in Mormonism. Mormonism is a theory of managed progress, right? So Smith is all like, yeah, just you got to live in my city, and you live by these rules, and you'll be grand, and it's true, right? It's true that like educational outcomes in Iowa, Salt Lake City, vastly better than everywhere else in America. So, or Quakerism. I mean, the Quakers and their theory of social progress, we're just around Thanksgiving. Well, we're through Thanksgiving, I believe. But, that's fundamentally about, people fleeing religious persecution and then founding a society based on the theory of progress, which comes from the Quakers, another of those kind of very progressive, hardworking religions. So yeah, I'm a fan of any belief system that builds in progress as its
It's
idea.
it's funny. Total aside, I would have had a lot of interactions with religion when I was younger, and there was one group who they were a rock band. I knew they were from Dublin, a Christian rock band, and they were touring America. So they were going around to churches, and they were touring in this van, which wasn't the most amazing van. And when they arrived at the venue, the venue said, we preach the prosperity gospel here, which means, if you are blessed by God, you're rich, basically. So could you park the van around the back? Because they didn't want their their church goers to see this rickety old van bringing the band, because it will go against their belief
That's
system.
amazing.
I know.
That's amazing.
And they just out of curiosity, with this whole Schultz thing and with this whole mathematical thing and the connectivity of it, and that because we're looking like, this is a proof that as we're looking forward as well as to the past, like, what does it mean for like things like AI and these things that are just going to become more and more part of our life, whether we're into it or not?
Oh, well, so one of the things that's true about AI is how it enhances us, right? So, I mean, if you can think about that, I mentioned the thing about topology, right? Like knots and stuff. Take a donut, or whatever, and then just turn the donut left and right in both hands, right? It forms a little knot in the middle. Or take a bit of string and knot it together. The way that thing connects up once it has been knotted, and there's a thing called knot theory, in fact, is really, really, really complicated. And sometimes the work that is done there, like, it's really relevant to like DNA, protein folding, all that sort of stuff, but the maths are forbidding. And very, very recently, AI software actually collaborated with mathematicians. So the mathematicians came up with a theorem that said, well, this structure of knots looks really, really unintuitive. Like, it doesn't look like a thing that should be real. And the AI system actually checked it to make sure it was real. And it turns out, yeah, it's true, And if you think about these things where you have a really where you have a really, really, really unintuitive, like super complicated thing that a human mind just isn't big enough to encounter and to encapsulate, then all of a sudden, this whole area of maths opens up. And again, like, the applications, like, who knows what the applications of this thing are going to be, but they're all there. Like this thing, the knot structure, like, a lot of it is being used in biochemistry and pharmaceuticals, because it's about the structure of the world, and we're part of the world. So the more you learn about the world, the better things are going to be for you. But yeah, AI is AI can kind of like help us understand not just really complicated things in one domain, like, prove a really complicated theorem about knots, right? I mean, fundamentally, that's like, travel down the path that we've set for you, but it can also find connections between things which you didn't know was there. That's pretty cool too, yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. Like, that's pretty impressive, because you wouldn't have thought about it without this extra tool. Like, that's class. I don't subscribe to the AI is going to eat our brains kind of thing. I think it's just going to make like some boring stuff easy. Some extremely tedious stuff will just go away. Some of the things that there will be things that we simply can't see. The only problem is who owns the stuff, and that's not AI's fault.
It's funny because I kind of oscillate between things, between the two sides. So obviously, I'm a big fan of progress and technological improvements. And, if a farmer has a tractor, then that means the fields can get plowed a lot quicker, and it's not being pushed, but, and there are, I suppose, though, there are things that, when we take the time to do them, are good for our brain. There are actions that, when you take a moment to kind of do a task, be it physical or whatever, it's good, and it sets off things in our brain that can't be done by by doing it quickly, or
Mm.
I need to give an example, but it's interesting. I remember, like, I don't know, millions of episodes ago, you were saying that, in the future, and you'll just run out of washing powder, and your washing machine will send a message to a shop, and the washing powder will arrive by drone or whatever.
Yeah.
Or this idea of a smart fridge telling me I'm running low on milk. I think it's good if I know what I am running out of. I think it's good for my brain to be aware of if I'm providing for my needs and that of my family. And I feel there's this kind of balance between the two. Apart from the fact I'm not a fan of drones, and the notion of them flying around willy-nilly and buzzing around my door and everywhere, and just what that would do to the soundscape of the world does not appeal to me either. And I know we adjust. I'm sure if someone from 100 years ago was walking around Ireland now, they just put their fingers in their ears going, what is this noise? And even the noise pollution of phones and all that, I know we tune it out, but I do find that, even music, like and so this is what I'm saying. Yeah. So to go and buy music, to go and read your inlay card, to put it on, the value that you put on those songs, the value you put, as opposed to someone will send me a new album by one of my favorite artists on a text on WhatsApp on Spotify, and I'll go, oh yeah, cool. Well, I might not listen to it, even though I would have gone to the shop to buy this person's CD number. So I'm not, as I said, I'm not like some nostalgic future skeptic, always looking to the 90s for the best time of the world or something. That said, I do think that I find my brain gets a bit flabby and lazy when everything is done for it, and I don't have to take the time to physically even write down things. There are all these little things that are, maybe our brains are becoming incredibly developed in other ways, but I do feel the loss of skills I had because I used to manually do a lot of things that now are just automatically done by my phone.
Yeah, there's actually a whole book out called What We Have Lost.
Oh.
And it's all about that. It's all about the fact that we don't write things down anymore, so our handwriting's gone to bits, or the short-term memory of children is failing, or depression levels amongst teenage girls have been conclusively statistically linked with the use of Instagram. Stuff like this, there are downsides to everything. The upside is that we get to choose, right? So you get to choose. You're like, screw this, I'm going to buy vinyl, or I'm going to buy a CD. I don't want to deal with this Spotify nonsense. I'm not into it. Whereas in the 90s, you had one choice: CDs. You couldn't even get vinyl, actually. You were like, you're going to use the CD or nothing.
So there's the odd tape floating around as well.
Tape from Atlantic 252, bootlegged. That is true. I think what's really interesting is watching kids look at technology and then look away from it. So it's very interesting because they're discerning. They'll look at it and go, yeah, I see, that's quite useful, but also just turn it off, put it away. Well, I mean, also just having a simple rule: no devices upstairs. Very simple, hard rule. That's it. It works great.
The thing is, I'm like, kids are not who I'm worried about. It's me.
It's me.
But I am worried.
No
about
moral
kids
panic involved. Yeah.
No. I am. No, absolutely. Like I would not be pointing, look at the children on their phones as I'm looking at the photo of them on their phones on my phone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the reason I think all these technologies ring alarm bells is, say, the addictive nature of them. Not all technologies, but the addictive nature of technologies is, of course, they're addictive. Of course, we're all addicted. Like, you're not special if you're addicted to it. It's kind of hard not to be. So even right now, if we're in your ear, we're probably on Spotify or something, which makes things very handy. But yeah, I suppose this is the nature of any change, and certainly the older I get, the more I feel my familiar link with what's cool and what's happening being kind of wrenched a bit away, and I'm feeling a little bit more, oh, back in my day is coming into my vocabulary more and more. But
Yeah.
it's that sense of the doing things slowly and meditatively are just like not like, oh, let's live in the past, like in an Amish sense or anything like that, and let's do things the way we used to. um but I do find, if there's some exercises I do creatively which involve handwriting, and I sometimes try to challenge myself not to do cursive, so to do it just to slow me down a bit more. All these things,
Okay.
because I get impatient and I start speeding up and it gets illegible, and
Yeah.
because I suppose what I feel I have found is my impatience is um what has been kind of fanned by all this.
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel the more convenient the world becomes, that, naturally, the moment like an episode buffers, it's like, smash something.
This is ridiculous. How
But
very dare you?
I think it's funny how every generation, like, obviously technology, just kids get it. It is in their thing. Like, I remember when I was young, my mom used to call me in to work the video recorder, so
Yeah.
they just get it quicker because it's simple. But look,
Yeah.
the future is bright, is what we're ultimately saying, while
Yeah.
staying grounded and remembering.
The future is bright, and everything is better when we do it together. I think that's the key thing. The difference between Shawls and Nash, abstracting, of course, from the horrible mental health situation that Nash experienced, is Nash did it all on his own, and Shawls is doing it with a group of mates and going out for pints in the middle of it.
Yeah, can we just say yes to that? Yes to
Yes to
taking a
pints.
break. Yes, well, obviously yes to pints, but no, but whatever it is, taking a little break from something, coming back to it is very important, because rather
Very
than being
important.
stuck and taking a break from technology. But Stephen, I say happy Christmas and happy New Year, and at this early stage, but I hopefully will see you. But as regards, if you're listening, we will not be chatting to you again until the new year, and we do hope you have a happy and a safe Christmas and a cracking 2022 ringing in of, and let's hope it's an even brighter year than what we've had lately.
Great. It really will.
Happy Christmas, Stephen.
See you.
Bye.